An employee discovers the incredible truth, humiliating the hidden owner of the marina. Michael stood on the marina dock, the salty air wrapping around him like a familiar coat. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden shimmer across the water, he felt his heart sink. After a long shift, he couldn't shake off the weight of worry for his daughter, Emma, who was home alone, studying. At 38, he was a single dad, juggling work at the struggling marina in Seaview while nurturing his teenage daughter's dreams. The idea of securing a brighter future weighed heavily on him. The modest apartment they shared burst with memories. Family photos adorned the walls, and scattered across the dining table were Emma's colorful art projects, symbols of her creativity and joy. Each piece told a story, echoing the love and connection they cultivated. Yet, as he looked out over the tranquil waters, exhaustion filled his chest. Would it be enough? Then, everything changed. While cleaning up after the last of the customers had left, Michael stumbled upon some hidden documents tucked away in the marina office, a place he frequented like a second home. His breath caught as he glanced over the figures' discrepancies that screamed of deceit. It appeared Arthur, the shadowy owner of the marina, had been siphoning funds, leaving both staff and facility in neglect. Michael's hands trembled as he pieced together the scandal lurking beneath the surface. This was more than just business. Many of his co-workers depended on this job, juggling multiple positions to make ends meet. This community was family, and he wouldn't let them down. Michael felt a fire ignite within him. There was urgency in sharing this truth, a fierce determination to fight back against the injustices that stifled their lives. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. At the local diner, whispers of support broke the silence. Friendly faces shared their stories, eyes glimmering with shared dreams and struggles. Michael felt the community rally behind him, standing firm against the tide of economic inequality. As resentment simmered toward Arthur, Michael knew he had to confront him. But fear loomed large. What would the repercussions be? That night, as he lay in bed, his father's voice echoed in his mind, urging him to stand firm in adversity. With every beat of his heart, Michael steeled himself for the confrontation ahead. The day finally came. As he faced Arthur, the man's facade crumbled, revealing a hollow core. Words hung heavy in the chilly air, crackling with tension. Would Michael have the courage to take that leap for transformation, not just for himself, but everyone who yearned for justice? The waters of Seaview seemed to pulse with electricity around them, whispering the promise of change. Would they all drown in silence or fight for a future worthy of their dreams? The morning sun rose timidly over Seaview, casting a pale light on the slick marina docks. Michael waited, heart thrumming against his ribs as he replayed his confrontation with Arthur in his mind. What would the owner do next? Would he retaliate against Michael or the workers he had come to see as family? As he untied the lines on one of the small boats, he felt the weight of the situation settle deeper in his stomach. The threat loomed like storm clouds overhead at the marina. Faces were drawn. Murmurs of uncertainty drifted like fog over the water. His co-workers, unaware of the new details Michael held, gave him cautious looks. They had begun to hear rumors about Arthur's financial gains, and a shared anxiety hung in the air. He noticed Sally, the waitress who had worked there for years. Her hands trembled slightly as she handled the cash register, but she flashed him a weak smile, a flicker of hope amidst the worry. "Hey, you all right?" he asked, concerned his tension was spilling over. "Just tired, I guess. But we all know we deserve better," she replied, eyes lighting up for a split second before the shadow returned. Michael felt a surge of determination. They needed to rally together. The community was strong, and if he stepped into the ring, they could break Arthur's grip on their lives. He approached a group of co-workers during a break, including Tim, the mechanic, and Jenna, the office coordinator. "Listen, everyone," he said, his voice steady yet taut with urgency. "I found some papers in the office that show Arthur has been stealing from us. If we stay silent, nothing will change. But if we stand together, we can expose him. Gasps echoed among the small group, a mix of disbelief and revolutionary spirit igniting their eyes. They knew he was right, but fear held them back. The community's needs were too many, and the stakes too high. What if he retaliates? Tim shot back, crossing his arms tight against his body. Then we fight back. We take it to the local press. We call everyone out for these injustices. Think about your families. Think about Emma, Michael urged, locking eyes with each of them. We deserve better, and we will take charge of our future. Suddenly, the urgency crystallized in the air. He could feel the energy shift, a current of courage that began to pull them together. As heads nodded in reluctant agreement, hope blossomed in whatever dark corner had been holding them back. Days passed as they crafted their plan, gathering evidence, stories, any clue that could provide a path forward. Michael felt the load on his shoulders easing as they moved from anxious whispers to determined voices, each one a small victory. The thought of Emma encouraged him. He'd be fighting not just for his sake, but for all their dreams. Then, on the day they were set to meet with the press, the mood in the marina was a mix of anticipation and dread. As they huddled by the docks, he realized Arthur had struck first. A sleek black car pulled up, and the heavy door swung open. Michael's heart sank as Arthur stepped out, a triumphant smile betraying the storm brewing behind his eyes. "You think you can take me down?" Arthur called out, a mocking tone lacing his words. "You have no idea what you're getting into." The air crackled with tension. Would Michael stand firm, or would fear cloud his judgment at the last moment? The community felt the weight of this choice, and he could practically hear their collective heartbeat. But just as Michael took a step forward, ready to confront the truth, another unseen figure emerged, ready to shake the very foundation of their dreams. Who was this newcomer, and what did they bring to the growing conflict? The crowd held its breath as the newcomer stepped out from behind the black car. A flash of bright red hair caught the sunlight, making it nearly glow, and Michael squinted to take in the figure who had interrupted Arthur's taunt. It was Rachel, the lawyer from town, an unexpected ally. "Michael," she called out, striding towards him. Her voice was firm and commanding. "I've heard everything. We can't let him intimidate us." "What are you doing here?" Michael asked, half surprised and half hopeful. "I came to help you," she replied, determination etched across her features. "I had a feeling Arthur might retaliate. So, I gathered some resources, talked to a few local reporters, and I'm ready to back you up." Arthur's smile faltered, replaced by a scowl as confusion rippled through the crowd. They were being given a chance to fight back, and Michael felt that spark of hope ignite again. "Do you really think we can win?" he asked Rachel, seeking reassurance. "Winning isn't just about the outcome. It's about standing up for what's right." Her eyes locked onto Arthur's, unflinching. "You've got the evidence. You've got the community behind you. Let us turn the tables." As Rachel spoke, whispers among the workers began to swell. They looked to one another, exchanging glances filled with renewed resolve. The fear that had gripped them started to loosen, replaced by a burgeoning courage. "What if he tries to ruin us? What if he threatens our jobs?" Jenna's voice quivered, the palpable anxiety returning for a brief moment. "Let him try," Rachel shot back with fierce confidence. "He's already on thin ice. But if you all stand together and support each other, he won't be able to break your spirits. This is about more than just you. This is about the entire community of Seaview." Arthur, feeling the tide turning, stepped forward, his tone sharp. "You think you can rally this pathetic group against me? There's no way you'll win." "No," Rachel said, her voice rising to meet his. "You underestimate their strength. You've taken too much from them, and now it's time for them to take back their lives." In that moment, something shifted in Michael. It wasn't just about the marina anymore. It was about every worker who had dared to dream. He could see it in their eyes, their families, their hopes for a better future. They were all fueled by a shared sense of injustice that bound them tighter than ever. "Let us do this," Michael announced, stepping forward to join Rachel at the forefront, putting his fear aside. "We take our story to the press today. Together." The workers behind him rallied, a collective roar filling the air. Arthur's face darkened as the group united, and for the first time, Michael could see him growing wary. He knew this was a critical moment, a point of no return. As they turned to face the press gathering nearby, adrenaline coursed through Michael's veins. Behind him, His co-workers were standing tall, bracing themselves for the fight ahead. But before he could take another step, Arthur shouted, "You have no idea what I'm capable of. This is bigger than all of you." The threat hung in the air, ominous and heavy, but Michael pressed forward, propelled by a vision of hope. Just as they reached the press, he couldn't shake the feeling of dread. What did Arthur have in store for them? With the stakes rising and the weight of the world at their backs, was that fierce determination enough to shield them from whatever retaliation Arthur was plotting? The press crowd was alive with activity. Cameras flashed, and reporters jockeyed for position, hungry for the latest story that might expose the corruption swirling around Arthur's empire. Michael swallowed hard, feeling every heartbeat echo in his ears. Rachel stood by his side, her confidence a steady anchor in the storm of uncertainty. "Just speak from the heart," she whispered, brushing her fingers against his arm. He could feel the warmth radiating between them, a simple gesture that tethered him to hope. Taking a deep breath, Michael stepped forward. The murmurs of the crowd quieted as he raised his hand. "Thank you all for being here today. We're here to share our truth." He glanced at his co-workers, their faces a mix of anxiety and support, and continued, "For far too long, Arthur has taken advantage of our hard work, our loyalty, and our silence. But we're done being quiet. We're done being scared." A ripple of encouragement surged through the gathered workers. He could feel their collective strength behind him, pushing him to stand taller. "Last week, while we were laboring to keep this marina afloat, we discovered documents that expose Arthur's deceit. He has siphoned funds from our paychecks while promising bonuses and raises he never intended to deliver." A gasp echoed from the crowd. Murmurs spread like wildfire among the workers, disbelief and anger igniting in their eyes. Rachel grabbed the mic. "Michael, isn't alone in this. We've reached out to local reporters, and we have witnesses ready to speak about the conditions here and the way Arthur has treated our community." Arthur stormed forward, his face blotched with fury. "You think this will work? You're nothing without me. I built this place from the ground up. On the backs of those you exploited." Michael shot back, words pouring from him as if they had been bottled up too long. "You may have built this place, but it's the workers who make it thrive. You can't silence us anymore." As Michael finished, flashes from the cameras intensified, catching the raw emotion in the air. Hope clashed with fear, but in that moment, it felt as if hope was winning. Faces among the workers shifted from uncertainty to determination. They were ready to stand together. Just then, a figure stepped forward from the back, a wiry man named Carl, one of the older workers no one expected to speak up. "I've worked here for over 20 years, and I've got stories that would make your skin crawl." His voice was shaky but powerful. "My family depended on this job, while Arthur looked the other way for his own gain. I won't stand by anymore." The press noted this shift as the crowd roared in support. Michael could feel the tide turning. But Arthur's face twisted into a sneer, clearly calculating his next move. "You think exposing me is all it takes? I have resources, connections that you can't even begin to understand. You'll regret this." "Maybe," Rachel countered, "but we won't back down. We're stronger together, and no amount of intimidation can change that." As they stood before the press, adrenaline pulsing through their veins, Michael felt the walls of Arthur's power starting to crack. There was still danger lurking, shadows of retaliation that could come down on the community like a storm. But as he looked at Rachel, then at his co-workers, he realized that even the fiercest storm could not extinguish the fire ignited in their hearts. What other secrets lay hidden in the depths of Arthur's corruption? As they stood ready to fight, uncertainty loomed. Would they be enough to weather whatever was coming their way? With the weight of truth propelling them forward, they took their stand, but what would be the price of their courage? The tension in the air crackled as Michael stood his ground, heart racing with a mix of adrenaline and fear. The reality of their situation began to sink, and this was not just a protest. It was a declaration of war. Arthur's presence loomed threateningly over them, but the gathered crowd felt electric, their voices rising in a wave of defiance. "Let us make our demands clear," Rachel shouted into the mic, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We want fair wages, safe working conditions, and accountability from Arthur." The crowd echoed her sentiments, chanting loudly, "Fair wages, safe conditions." The sound filled the entire marina, drowning out the distant roar of the ocean and the creeping uncertainty in their hearts. Michael watched the scene unfold, a sense of disbelief washing over him. Just moments ago, they all stood in fear of losing their jobs, but now, empowered by their shared truths, they began to push against the oppressive weight of Arthur's influence. It was like a new pulse had started within the community, one that promised solidarity. Arthur stood there, trembling in anger. "You think the press will save you? They'll twist your words, make you look like fools." He spat back, trying to regain control of the narrative. But there was no turning back now. The truth had been unleashed, and it felt liberating. Suddenly, the sharp sound of cameras snapping resonated through the crowd, each flash capturing raw emotion, the anger, the resolve, and even the glimmers of hope. News vans began rolling in, their reporters scrambling to cover this unexpected uprising. Carl, emboldened by his earlier outburst, stepped forward again. "I have worked here long enough to know what truth feels like. I witnessed how Arthur manipulated our family's needs for his personal gain. No more." His words struck a deep chord within the crowd. People began to step forward one by one, sharing similar stories of hardships and exploitation. It was as if a dam had broken, spilling out years of pent-up frustration and anguish. It became clear. This was their moment. Their fears started to wash away, replaced by a fierce determination that exhilarated every soul present. Michael caught Rachel's gaze, and in that fleeting moment, they both understood they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. The crowd's voices harmonized, rising to match the waves crashing against the dock. No more silence. No more fear. They were reclaiming their narrative, refusing to be the footnotes in Arthur's story. But even as momentum surged, Michael felt a twisting knot of anxiety in his gut. He knew Arthur wouldn't go down without a fight. Deep down, he feared the kind of retaliation Arthur was capable of. The connections, the money, and the influence could turn their hopes into a nightmare of legal battles and threats. As if sensing Michael's doubts, Rachel squeezed his hand tightly. "Whatever happens, we face it together," she whispered. Her faith bolstered him. Suddenly, a crisp voice pierced the chaos. "This is Sarah Green from Channel 9 News. Can we get a few words?" A field reporter had barged into the scene, microphone extended towards Michael and Rachel. "Tell us why you're standing here," she pressed, eyes bright with curiosity. Michael took a deep breath, heart pounding in his chest. This was a chance to spread their message, to assert their truth to hundreds more sitting at home. He nodded at Rachel, urging her to take the lead. But Rachel stepped to the side, nudging him forward. It was his turn, and a mix of fear and honor swept through him. He opened his mouth, ready to speak, ready to ignite that fire within others, to urge them to join the fight against Arthur. But before he could utter a word, a scream cut through the crowd, freezing everyone in place. "Look out!" someone shouted. Instinctively, Michael spun around, face pale. Arthur had clawed his way through the crowd with a menacing expression, a phone in hand, finger poised over the screen. With fury boiling in his eyes, the chilling threat surged through the air. "You'll all regret this. You have no idea what I am capable of." The electricity of their newfound power hung in the tension, but fear lingered like clouds before a storm. What would the cost of courage be when faced with Arthur's wrath? And did they really have what it took to fight back against his intimidation? As Michael stood frozen, staring into the darkness of uncertainty ahead, the question lingered in the air, overshadowing their victorious moment. How far would they have to go to protect what they believed in? Michael's heart pounded as he watched Arthur stand before them, a storm brewing in his eyes. The crowd felt it too. Every breath was heavy with fear and anticipation as they awaited the fallout. Michael's skin prickled, sensing the tension unraveling like a coiled spring ready to snap. Around them, whispered conversations flickered. "What does he mean?" someone muttered. "This isn't good," said another. The unity they just forged felt momentarily fragile under the weight of Arthur's threats. "Back off," Carl shouted, stepping defensively ahead of Michael and Rachel. "You don't scare us anymore. We're done with your intimidation tactics." Arthur sneered, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "You have no idea how far I can go," he replied, his voice low and edged with threats. "It wasn't a joke, it was a promise. Maybe it's time you find out." Rachel countered, bravely stepping up beside Carl. Her voice rang out, fierce and unwavering. Behind her, the crowd surged, emboldened by her courage, drowning their fear in collective defiance. "Let us show him we're not backing down," Michael shouted, clenching his fists, every ounce of fear transforming into raw determination. Then, in the midst of the chaos, a bold volunteer stepped to Sarah Green, the reporter. "You're right," she declared. "We need to tell our story, and we want you to report every detail." The reporter's eyes widened, sensing the shift in atmosphere. "I'm here for it," she exclaimed, glancing around, her mind racing as she prepared to capture the essence of this pivotal moment. The thought of broadcasting the injustices rattled in Michael's mind. Suddenly, Arthur's finger pressed urgently on his phone's screen. The crowd fell silent, eyes trained on him. For them, it felt like time stood still, as if the world held its breath. With a swipe of his finger, Arthur's voice boomed through the crowd, streamed live for viewers at home. "This," he said, voice amplified, "is what happens to those who oppose me." A pathetic display. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Anguish flashed through Michael as Arthur continued his tirade, attempting to isolate and embolden the divide he believed would silence them. "You think you know the truth?" Arthur said, sneering. "Let me show you what really happens to dissidents." The crowd bristled, but the passionate camaraderie that had been ignited wasn't easily extinguished. One by one, people began stepping forward, shouting back their truths, their struggles. "You're the one who's pathetic," someone yelled, and that was the spark. As they chanted their grievances, Michael felt the swell of hope in his chest. The tide had turned. More reporters arrived, cameras rolling. Suddenly, they were not just forgotten workers, they were a movement. "Where does this go from here?" Rachel asked, keeping her voice steady amidst the chaos. "Wherever we take it," Michael replied, heart racing with newfound determination. They had a chance to expose the truth, to hold Arthur accountable. But a gnawing fear still clawed at him. What if it all fell apart? What if they faced retaliation from the powerful man standing before them? As tension thickened, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental or something disastrous. "We have to stay united, no matter what happens next," he said to Rachel, squeezing her hand tightly. Behind them, the crowd echoed his sentiment. "Together, together," they chanted, powerful and united against the darkness. Yet, just as the enthusiasm soared, a different kind of fear gripped Michael. What if Arthur had a hidden ace up his sleeve? What if this was only the beginning of an even bigger battle? Suddenly, the crowd gasped, the air electric with a new revelation. From the side, an older gentleman broke through the sea of people. He looked determined, with the weight of years etched on his face. Slowly, he approached, locking eyes with Michael. "I know something you need to hear. It's about Arthur," he said, just loud enough to disrupt the chant. The revelation hung in the air. What could it be? As Michael's mind raced with possibilities, a sense of impending upheaval settled over him. The fight wasn't over, and if they were to break free, they needed answers and fast. What truth could this stranger hold, and how would it change everything? Michael felt the weight of the crowd's anticipation as the older man approached with purpose. His eyes, wise and weary, held a spark of determination that struck Michael with an unexpected intensity. "Who are you?" Michael asked, his voice rising above the whispers echoing through the gathering. The crowd behind him leaned in closer, their breaths held in collective suspense. "I'm Frank," the man replied, his voice steady, yet tinged with urgency. "I used to work for Arthur, and I know what he is really capable of, and what he's hiding." Richard stepped forward, curiosity piqued. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" Frank glanced around, ensuring they weren't being overheard. "There's a reason Arthur treats people the way he does," he said, lowering his voice to just above a whisper. "It's not just about power, it's about fear. Fear of being exposed. What does he have to fear?" Michael pressed, his heart racing. He felt the crowd's eyes shift between him and Frank, the tension thick like a fog. "Arthur runs a fake charity," Frank continued, eyes narrowing. "He has been siphoning off funds meant for the community. It's a front to keep an iron grip on everything. But if we expose it," gasps echoed through the crowd, punctuating the gravity of his words. The implications were massive, seeping into Michael's mind like an ink spill. Their movement could mean real change, a chance to bring Arthur down, a chance to reclaim their lives. Why are you telling us this? Rachel chimed in, clasping Michael's arm tightly for support. Frank's expression softened, the kindness breaking through the harsh lines of his face. Because I watched him ruin people's lives while lining his own pockets. I can't stay silent anymore. You all deserve to know the truth. A roar of anger bubbled within Michael as they processed Frank's revelation. We need proof, he declared, adrenaline surging through him. Can you get it? Frank nodded slowly. I have some documents. But it's dangerous. Arthur will stop at nothing to protect what he has. We have to be careful. The weight of uncertainty hung in the air, the crowd trembling with excitement mixed with fear. Michael sensed the collective resolve solidifying behind him. If you're willing to help, we'll stand by you, he said, his voice rising with determination. We'll take on this fight together. United. As the crowd cheered louder, a mix of hope and dread coursed through Michael. This was no longer just about Arthur and his intimidation. It was about standing tall against corruption. If they were to expose the truth, they would have to face whatever darkness lurked behind it. Let us gather the proof and plan our next move, Rachel proposed, her voice ringing clear amongst the noise. Frank took a step back, looking at the packed crowd. The energy was electric, pulsating with the potential of revolution. Meet me tomorrow near the docks, he instructed quietly. I'll have what you need. Just be careful. Tomorrow, someone shouted. We'll be ready. As they dispersed, a thrill of determination surged within Michael. He glanced at Rachel, who wore a fierce expression of unwavering hope, and Carl, who looked equally resolved. Are we really doing this? Michael wondered out loud, the enormity of their choice crashing over him. Absolutely, Rachel replied, squeezing his hand again. This is it. You can almost taste the change in the air. But as night descended and uncertainty settled over him, the lingering dread clawed back to the forefront of his mind. Arthur would not go down without a fight. And who knew what other secrets lay hidden in the shadows? In the distance, Michael saw a flicker of movement, a shadow darting alongside the marina. His heart skipped a beat. Was it just his imagination, or was someone watching them? What would they uncover tomorrow? And would they be prepared for the fight of their lives? Michael barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, visions of Arthur's piercing gaze haunted him. The weight of Frank's revelations crushed down on him, a heavy reminder that tomorrow could change everything. As dawn broke, a sense of dread churned in his stomach, twisting and turning like a storm at SFB. By the time he met Rachel and Carl at the docks, the sun was rising behind the water, streaking the sky with hues of orange and pink. It was beautiful, but that beauty felt distant and surreal. The three of them stood in a small huddle, their nervous energy palpable in the crisp morning air. Do you think Frank will really show up? Carl asked, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. Michael couldn't tell if his friend was more anxious about Frank or the entire plan they had set in motion. He has to, Michael replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. He knows we're counting on him. And if he doesn't, his words trailed off into an uncomfortable silence, filled only with the lapping of waves against the docks. Rachel leaned in closer, her voice a whisper. Listen, no matter what happens, we stick together, okay? If Frank gets the documents, we have to be ready for anything. Her eyes sparkled with determination, but even they couldn't mask the fear brewing beneath the surface. Just then, a figure emerged in the distance, the sun shimmering off his graying hair. Michael's pulse quickened. It was Frank, carrying a worn leather satchel, his expression stern and focused. Ready? Frank asked as he approached, his eyes scanning the area. The tension in the air thickened, and Michael exchanged quick glances with Rachel and Carl. We're ready, Michael replied, though his voice trembled slightly. You have the proof? Frank nodded, unbuckling the satchel and revealing a collection of manila folders. What I have in here could finally expose Arthur for what he is, a thief hiding behind a mask of charity. A rush of adrenaline surged through Michael as he stepped forward, eager to see the evidence that could topple the giant. What do we need to do? How can we take him down? Patience, Frank replied, his expression serious. We gather the information first. Then we need to strategize. We can't just blow the whistle without a plan. Arthur has eyes everywhere. He'll come after us with everything he has. As Frank laid out the documents, Michael's heart sank as he read through them. They contained donations that were never received, Invoices billed to Arthur's own companies, and testimonies from those who had tried to reach out for help but were instead silenced. Anger bubbled inside him, hot and consuming. "Look at this," he shouted, pointing at a particularly damning piece of evidence. Rachel leaned closer, her fingers trembling over the papers as she read the implications, her eyes wide with disbelief. This could change everything she breathed, realization dawning upon her face. Suddenly, the sharp sound of tires screeching on the pavement jerked Michael's attention away. He spotted a black SUV parking hastily nearby. The dread that had been lurking surfaced like bile in his throat. "Arthur's here," Carl shouted, his voice cutting through the panic that gripped the group. Frank quickly stuffed the documents back into the satchel. "Move," Frank urged, urgency in his voice. "We need to get out of sight." They barreled down the docks, Michael glancing back to see Arthur stepping out of the SUV, his towering figure barely visible through the crowd that had begun to gather. As Arthur's men fanned out around him, Michael felt a chill creep up his spine. Would they get away in time? Did they really have a chance against him? As they ducked behind a stack of crates, Michael couldn't shake off the feeling that they were playing a dangerous game. The thrill of the fight was intoxicating, but the risk felt thunderous. "What now?" Rachel whispered, her breath shaky. "We hold on to this evidence tight," Frank replied, "and we prepare for a fight. Because what is coming next? It's just the beginning." The tension hung thick in the air as they waited. Hearts pounding. Would they be ready for whatever storm was about to break? Michael pressed himself against the crates as he listened, every sense heightened. The bustling sounds of the docks faded into a tense silence, punctuated only by his rapid heartbeat. He could see Arthur now, surveying the area with an unyielding glare, his men forming an imposing circle around him. The sight sent a shiver down Michael's spine. "Is he looking for us?" Carl whispered, eyes wide with fear. "Not yet," Frank said, peering through a small gap between the crates. "But we can't stay here forever. We need a plan." Rachel clenched her hands into fists, determination flooding her features. "What about the other side of the docks? We could slip through while everyone is distracted." "You're right," Michael replied, the gears in his mind starting to turn. "If we can make it to the next alleyway, we might have time to regroup." "On my count," Frank murmured, glancing back at Arthur, who was now speaking to one of his men, frustration evident in the sharp movements of his hands. 3, 2, 1, go. They moved as silently as shadows, dashing from their hiding spot, the crates concealing them in the early morning light. Michael's pulse raced as he focused only on the alleyway ahead, each step steady despite the panic clawing at his insides. They made it to the alley just as a shout rang out behind them. "Over there!" Michael's heart sank. They had been spotted. "Run!" Frank shouted, the urgency in his voice propelling them forward. The tight alley was littered with crates and garbage, the air thick with the smell of fish. They were sprinting now, adrenaline surging through them. Michael glanced over his shoulder just in time to see Arthur's men fanning out into the alley like wolves on a hunt. Panic clawed at his throat. "Left! Go left!" he shouted, veering sharply as they reached a fork in the alley. They stumbled into a narrow passage, the sounds of pursuit echoing in the darkness around them. Rachel stumbled, but Carl caught her just in time, their eyes wide with fear and determination. "Where are we going?" she gasped, trying to catch her breath. "I don't know. Just keep moving." Michael felt the pressure of time closing in on them, each second stretching longer than the last. They turned once more, the alley bending into another dead end. Michael slammed against the wall, catching his breath. A flicker of betrayal crossed his mind. Had they underestimated Arthur? Were they really chasing a lost cause? "Think, Michael," Frank said, voice sharp. "What is our next move?" Before he could answer, a voice boomed from the entrance of the alley. "There's nowhere to run. You can't hide from this." Michael's stomach twisted. It was Arthur, his presence an ominous shadow in the dim light. "Do you really think the truth will save you?" Arthur continued, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're playing a game far beyond your reach. Just ignore him." Rachel hissed. "We need to find a way out." But Michael couldn't shake the frost in his veins. Arthur was right, at least partly. They were outmatched, and every second brought danger closer. "Wait," Michael said, a thought sparking suddenly in his mind. "The documents. We have to get them somewhere safe. We can't let him touch them." Rachel nodded, her eyes fierce again. "Right. The cafe down the road. They'll let us in. Let us move, Frank urged, leading the way back into the maze of alleys, but this time with a newfound purpose burning within them. They had to protect the evidence. They had to fight back. As they sprinted toward the light shining at the end of the alley, Michael felt a glimmer of hope. This fight wasn't over. Not yet. But the question lingered in his mind. Could they really outsmart a man like Arthur? With each step they took, the fear remained, but so did the flicker of determination. What would happen when they reached the cafe? Would their gamble pay off, or would they fall deeper into Arthur's clutches? As they burst out into the street, the sunlight felt blinding after the shadowy confines of the alley. Michael squinted against the brightness, adrenaline pumping through his veins. The cafe was just across the street, a beacon of safety amidst the chaos swirling around them. Keep moving. Stick together, Frank shouted as they dashed toward the entrance, fear and urgency fueling their speed. The moment they reached the front door, Michael glanced back just in time to see the glint of Arthur's eyes as he turned the corner, still trailing behind them. They hadn't shaken him yet. Once inside, the cafe was buzzing with its usual morning crowd, regulars sipping coffee and reading newspapers. A sense of normalcy enveloped them for a brief moment, but Michael's heart raced at the thought of how quickly that could change. Frank led them to a corner table and hurriedly pulled out the documents. What do we do now? Carl asked, his voice quavering. Do we call the police? No, Rachel interjected, her tone firm. Not yet. We can't let Arthur know we're trying to go official. We need to secure the evidence and figure out our next steps first. Frank nodded, flipping through the folders, ensuring everything was intact. We need to find a way to get this out to the press without alerting him. The people have a right to know the truth. Just as they began to strategize, the door swung open, and in walked Arthur, his imposing figure instantly commanding attention. Silence fell over the cafe as eyes darted toward him. Michael's heart sank. Don't look at him, Frank whispered urgently, lowering his head. He can't know we're here. But Arthur was scanning the room, his cold gaze piercing through the patrons until it landed on their table. Michael felt panic rise in his chest. We need to leave. Now, he hissed. Wait, Rachel said softly, her eyes darting to the back exit. If we slip out while he's distracted on my count, Frank commanded. 3, 2, 1, go. They slipped out the back door like shadows in motion, breathless with urgency. As they emerged into the alley behind the cafe, Michael couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted. The weight of their situation pressed heavily on him, but a spark of defiance ignited as he felt Rachel's hand steady on his shoulder. Look, come on. We can't give in to fear, she urged, her eyes resolute. We know the truth. Let us make sure everyone else does too. As they ran down the side streets, a plan started to form in Michael's mind. We reach out to the local news station directly. We can send them the documents anonymously, set up a meeting, something that puts Arthur on the back foot, he suggested, hope threading through his voice. Yes, get the evidence in their hands before he realizes what's happening, Frank said, his expression brimming with determination. We can build our case while he's scrambling to find us. But their moment of hope was interrupted by the sudden vibration of Michael's phone in his pocket. Heart racing, he pulled it out to see an incoming call from Emma. I can't, he started, but Rachel took the phone. Let it ring, she urged. No, I can't leave her hanging. With shaking hands, he answered, breathless. Emma, I'm okay. Just stay put for now. Everything's fine. Dad, where are you? Her voice was tinged with worry. I've been hearing about protests, and the weight of her concern pulled at his heart. I promise I'm safe. Just trust me, stay close to home. I'll be there soon. His voice was thick with emotion, and he hung up, panic still swirling in his chest. Let us just go, Michael urged, pushing away the anxiety threatening to engulf him. The four of them wove their way through side streets until they reached the local news station, their resolve hardening with each step. They found the entrance and hurried inside, armed with Frank's folders. This is it, Michael whispered, fear and determination clamoring for attention inside him. As they stepped into the reception area, Michael approached the receptionist. We need to speak with someone about a story. It's about Arthur from the Marina. It's urgent. After what felt like forever, they were ushered into a small conference room. As they waited, Michael glanced at his friends. The tension hung heavy in the air, but something felt light that hadn't before. When the reporter, Sarah Green, walked in, the tension shattered like glass. "Michael, I thought you'd never show." She smiled, but instantly turned serious as she caught on to the urgency in their demeanor. "What is going on?" Fighting against the swell of relief, Michael explained, laying out the documents on the table. "Arthur has been misusing funds from a charity he set up for the community. I need your help to expose him before he gets to us first." Sarah's eyes widened as she scanned the papers, brows furrowing as she read the damning evidence. "If this is true," she began, then looked up at the group. "We'd love to run with this story. I have contacts who can dig deeper, but we need to be careful. Arthur is not someone to trifle with." Over the next few hours, they worked tirelessly. The weight of fear morphed into action as they shared testimony, piecing together a timeline, and strategizing how they could get the story out safely. Each moment felt electric, the community's collective resilience crackling through every word exchanged. Finally, Sarah looked up, determination glinting in her eyes. "We'll start with this. Expect coverage by morning. Let us make sure the community knows the truth." As they walked out of the station, Michael felt lighter, each step pulsating with a mix of hope and purpose. The fight wasn't over, but they had ignited something profound. They were no longer shadows hiding in the corners. They were a movement propelled by truth and unity. As they left, Rachel squeezed Michael's hand. "Whatever happens next, we're in this together, right?" "Always," he replied, and with that, they set off, ready to face the storms ahead. Would they bring down Arthur? That remained to be seen, but they had begun a journey fueled by the fire of hope. And in that moment, Michael knew nothing could extinguish the spirit of a united community fighting for what is right. So, as you sit with this story, remember the courage that lit the path ahead. Subscribe immediately to not miss the next exclusive tales where we dive deep into transformation and justice. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, allowing these stories to soar. We need to hear your reactions. Comment below your thoughts on this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Standing together, we can create real change.